I was born in New York City, in Manhattan, May 28th, 1934. And then I guess around just before the beginning of World War II, we moved to the Bronx. And I lived there till I got married and moved away. It was a nice area, but it was all 4- and 5-story walk-ups, tenements. It was a tenement district. And by walk-up, that means that you had to walk up to the 5th floor and walk back down again. There was no elevators in the buildings. I went to Cardinal High School, which was a Catholic high school. I had to take the subway every day to get there and get back. While I was in my senior year, I got hired by Royal Globe Insurance Company down on Fulton Street as an IBM operator trainee. I got paid 95 cents an hour. It was minimum wage back then, with the understanding that when I graduated, they would give me a full-time job, which they did. And then I started at the amazing amount of $32. I had one big incident that happened in 1952. On a blind date, I met my future wife. She was 16, I was 17. It worked. When I turned 19, I wanted to enlist in the Army, but my father was dead against it. He was a peasant. He came in from Europe in 1914 via Ellis Island. I said, look, if I can get myself drafted, it'll only be 2 years. I really want to do this. I want to go away. And he said, okay, he'll buy that. So I went down to the draft board. Back then, the draft was 18 to 26 in that time span. So I went down to the draft board, and now I'm living in the Bronx, and the pool of guys in my board where I was like thousands of people within that age group. So I said, can I volunteer to be drafted? She was the nicest lady you'd ever want to see. And she says, of course you can, you're 18. And she said, I'll just give you a form, you fill it out, you sign your name. And she says, I'll even let you pick the month you want to go. She says, you know, it's November now, maybe you don't want to be in training during the winter. I can hold you off till March, till April, whenever you want. So I said, when's the next draft? She says, November 3rd. I said, that's when I want to go. So then I got a letter, the greetings letter. Greetings from the president. You've been inducted, where you're supposed to report and what time and all that stuff. So, but I expected it. It was no surprise.
This is Korea.
A year prior to John's enlistment, the United States and North Korea signed the Korean Armistice Agreement, effectively beginning the ceasefire of the Korean War. Though tensions were starting to cool down on the Korean peninsula, escalation of the Cold War was just heating up. The effort to contain communism required even more resources and manpower as John entered basic training.
So I got in, and I was sent down to Fort Dix, New Jersey, which was basically went about an hour and a half ride away from New York City. I went through 8 weeks of basic training, and then the second 8 would be for what was going to be your specialty, what they were going to train you for. After we did the 8 weeks, they then had us give us about a 3 or 4 days furlough, which we were able to go home. When we came back, I reported. I know where I was supposed to go. On the next morning, we had our first formation, and a young second lieutenant, who was the company commander, gets out, and he says, you men are lucky. He says, you're going to be trained as heavy weapons infantrymen. Then the guys are starting to, you could hear them, what does that mean? We carry 100-pound guns on our back? And he says, the reason why you're lucky is because in the next war, and when it will come, you gentlemen will be at least 100 yards behind the main line of resistance. Then the guys felt good. Hey, that ain't bad. The company was supposed to go over to Korea. It was going to replace a similar heavy weapons infantry company that was rotating back. And before that happened, about 8 or 9 of us was called out one morning at a formation and said, you people are not going to Korea, you're going to the 3rd Infantry Regiment in Fort Myer, Virginia. So we got down later in the evening, and I can't explain it, but Fort Myer was almost like driving into a college town. It was beautiful. Tree-lined streets, sidewalks. Why? Because maybe 60% of the people that lived there were all officers from maybe major up who worked in the Pentagon who worked in D.C. We got in, we were talking to some of the fellas. I was in Baker Company, and we were saying, what's this formation we have to see tomorrow? What's that all about? And they said, oh, that's where the company commander of A Company, which is the honor guard company of the regiment, comes down and surveys all you new recruits and selects who is going to be in his company. So we go down, and I do my best to look sharp and shine my shoes and polish my brass. And we went down there, and sure enough, Joseph B. Love, we called him J.B. Love, one of the sharpest officers I've ever seen in my life. And he comes down and he goes through the ranks, and he looks at you and talks to you, and then if he liked you, he sort of just shook his head. And the field first knew exactly what he meant, and the field first would say, fall out. Go up there, quick, double time, run up, okay. So he came in, I happened to be one of the fellas he picked. So we get into A Company, then we have to spend the next 2 weeks, we had to learn A Company way of doing things. We went through the training in the company itself. We had a sergeant and a corporal who worked us up from reveille till after taps at night. And I wound up being pretty good with manual of arms, so I wound up in the drill platoon, which was the de facto honor guard platoon. So I worked there, and I was in the first squad, and I did pretty good, and I was able to make the 24-man drill team. I worked my way up because, again, with so many people being drafted, there was a constant turnover. So before the end of '54, I wound up being squad leader of the first squad. I went, I think, from $70 a month to $90 a month. I used to send half of my money home to my mother because we were poor, and it helped her out a lot. Then, in the end of December of '54, they came up with the idea that they wanted to have a special guard mount for the Chief of Staff of the United States Army's personal quarters on a beautiful building. It was like 3 stories almost, all brick, very nice. It had a beautiful view of Washington right from it. He could just go out his front door, and there's all the Capitol, and everything you want to see in Washington is right there. There was an opening on this new guard detail, and it's going to be now a permanent position. And it was called Post Number 1 because he was the Chief of Staff. It was always Post Number 1. The Chief of Staff of the United States Army is the highest ranking officer in the United States Army. When I say personal quarters, it was personal quarters. His wife lived there. So it was his family home too. So not only did he have to make sure the general was happy, he had to make sure his wife was happy too. Don't get involved with her, which we never did. It was pretty good. They were very nice people. So the company commander had to speak to, he spoke to 3 of us for the one opening, and he happened to pick me. The nice thing about that was now, I didn't walk duty no more. All I did was change the guard. We had a formal guard change, almost like the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. Every hour during the day, every 2 hours at night. But it was interesting for a young guy out of the Bronx, young kid coming out of the tenements. Wow, it was a whole new world.
John would spend the rest of his time in the military in one of the most prestigious positions a soldier could reach. During his service, he guarded figures such as Chief of Staff Generals Matthew Ridgway and Maxwell Taylor. His duty required precision and excellence during the countless hours of drills and guard changes. Even though his body and mind guarded our nation's top leaders, his heart was devoted to a special lady waiting for him to come home.
The girl that I met in '52, Arlene Smith, she was my girl. And I said to her, you know, I'd like you to wait for me. You know, we're going to be separated. I don't know, I may go to Europe, who the heck knows? I may go to Korea. I don't know where I'm going to go. I said, but it'd be nice to know that when I get back, you'll be here for me. I said, I'd like to give you my high school ring as a token of my commitment. I said, will you accept it? She waited for a few seconds, and all of a sudden she said, put it there. So I gave it a ring, and that was it. Next year, I was able to get a little bit of money together, and I bought her an engagement ring. Smallest engagement ring you ever want to see. The stone was like just about made a half a carat, but that's all I could afford. And all the rest of her life, she would never change that ring, never. So sure enough, she waited when we got engaged, and I got out of the Army in November of '55. We got married in February of '56. I just lost her 4 years ago. We were married 61 years. It's a good time. Oh, I was very lucky, very lucky. I enjoyed the 2 years I was in. By no means can I say I was in the worst of this and the worst of that. For some reason, I lucked out, as a lot of guys did that worked out. I'm a veteran, but I don't try to impress on people on how great a veteran I was. I was a lucky veteran. That's all I'm going to say on that.